Hey, what's up, Creators Club? Tom here. And on this episode, I'm going to be taking you on set with us on a recent music video that we worked on. The brief or creative for this video kind of had a vintage or nostalgic-like look. So throughout the video, a lot of what you're going to see is actually shot with our nostalgia effects filter, which essentially warms the image and adds a little bit of softening as well, kind of like our dream effects. But beyond that, we're also going to be diving into a lot of the cinematography. So as the behind the scenes is playing on the screen, I'll sort of be in the lower right, just narrating and kind of walking you through some of the lighting setups we use to create some of the looks throughout this video. So yeah, with that, let's jump right in. So to start off, given that this is a longer format video, I've included a visual glossary with a thumbnail and a time code marker. So if there's a certain look that you maybe want to skip ahead to, now would be the time. Otherwise, we're gonna get started right now.
Today we're at the Honeymoon Inn. We're shooting a new music video directed by my good friend Nat Prinzi, Better Days Media. But today we're gonna do a bunch of cool, like kind of euphoria looks, mess around with a bunch of the new Prism Lens effects filters, mainly nostalgia effects. The video has kind of this dreamlike feel throughout the whole thing. So we're going in with nostalgia effects, and then we're gonna play with a lot of like the handheld stuff, as well as probably starburst effects, and because we're playing with candles a lot, and candles with the starburst effects look really, really cool. So just testing out, using a bunch of different filters on set today, having some fun at our studio, Honeymoon Inn.
Cool, so to get started, this is the beginning of the day where the camera's fully built and we're kind of switching out some filters. This first lighting setup, as you kind of will start to see, involves the lead artist sitting at a table lighting pictures on fire. And fire, as you'll learn throughout the video, becomes kind of a motif, right? She's lighting things on fire. We're gonna have kind of fire lights, lights with fire effects, creating a fire-like effect on her face. And a lot of the color palette of not only of the set design, but of the lighting is very warm. So yeah, right now we're just kind of getting set up, dialing in the shots. You'll see this is our 17-inch monitor. And by the way, if you see me glancing down, I'm just looking at the footage playing in real time. But basically, yeah, this is kind of our setup where it's nice to have a larger monitor, especially for the director. And we'll have a second smaller monitor that you'll see for the focus puller, who will be adjusting the focus remotely. But yeah, this is our first setup. You can kind of see we've laid out in a set, this is one of Jake and I's sets, the Honeymoon Hideout, in the kitchen set. So we've kind of set this up to be in the middle of the kitchen. As you see, the artist kind of laying out some of these tarot cards, and sort of the gag or the shot is she's lighting these on fire. And then the rest of the room and progressive shots will actually, start to become on fire through like VFX and stuff. So yeah, basically our first setup is on Steadicam. Steadicam is kind of surfing through these setups. And yeah, actually it was not the operator on this one. Funny enough, I was actually moving into my house here the day that this was happening. So bummed I couldn't make it, but I chatted with Jake and he kind of walked me through some of these setups. So as you see the Steadicam operator running around, wasn't me, but obviously some great shots in there. But yeah, this is very simple setup. I mean, essentially, I think a lot of it's actually, you'll see it's kind of lit with like a sky panel just going through some diffusion. And yeah, I mean, it pretty much opened up the space for the Steadicam operator and Jake shooting handheld to kind of move through the space freely. But yeah, I mean, I honestly find that, having, just to kind of circle back to having a 17-inch monitor, it is definitely a luxury. They're a little bit more expensive to own and, obviously another additional monitor to rent. But for a director, that means a lot, because the director, they have the whole vision in their head, right? So for them to be able to see a larger display of what their project essentially is crucial, right? Because I've been on jobs and I'm guilty of it when I'm shooting. I own like a 7-inch like focus monitor for my AC. And I've been on jobs where the director's like, hey, like, where's my monitor? And he's having to like peer over your AC shoulder. And so yeah, on these larger scale, music videos where there's budget, where you should definitely make sure you have some allocation of funds. I know obviously you're going to be renting cameras and lighting and crew, but ideally a 17-inch monitor or a director's monitor is crucial. So yeah, you'll kind of see that setup throughout the video, surfing around. This is Nat, the director right here. And yeah, basically just kind of diving in, basically just kind of using a DF50 to kind of not only lift the atmosphere, essentially lift the contrast by adding atmosphere, but later you're gonna see us using a fire light gag, which is essentially, as I mentioned, like a Steras set to a fire flicker mode. And essentially when those are flickering, it's gonna kind of catch the haze. So the haze was part of the look of the project just throughout, in a lot of these setups that you'll see, we use this DF50 hazer. And I've mentioned it in some other like behind the scenes stuff. Jake and I have our like Learn Cinematography. So if you're familiar with that platform, there's definitely a lot of lectures I go into on like haze versus fog. But when I say hazer, that essentially is creating, as you can kind of see in this footage, like that thin sort of lift. It almost looks like you lifted your blacks in post-production, right? Your shadows have been lifted. That's essentially what it creates in camera, right? Where fog tends to be as if like I was smoking something and you would actually see like the actual smoke trail. That's what a fogger is. Foggers are more for like events, parties, if you really want it to feel like you're in like fog, essentially, that's where an actual fogger is different than a hazer. A hazer just kind of creates this like, dusty look, and it really does help lift the contrast. And especially since a lot of this project dealt with fire, as I've, maybe just touched, as I essentially just touched on, the haze really does kind of help imbue or convey that look. So yeah, here we just have our lead subject or artist lighting some tarot cards on fire. You can kind of see we've got pretty simple lighting setup. I believe that is, as I mentioned, a sky panel or an aperture, just kind of going through some diffusion, and then Steadicam surfing around. So yeah, that's pretty much it actually on this setup.
Watch the ash slowly sink in.
It's gonna be really hot, so don't touch it. And